Welcome. And here we are, Unit 5 of your course. We're ready to wrap things up, but I do want to remind you with this unit that it is conceptually a continuation of Unit 4. In Unit 4, you just finished up looking at urbanism and the type of changes in community organization, community structure, population density, diversity of social classes, and the needs for a centralized authority in order to help all those things come together. In particular, we did take a look at intensive agriculture, and this is going to be a major focus of your last unit as well as we keep going. So not totally different, just wanted to break it up into two separate units so that it didn't become a scattered look all over the planet for those of you in a first course in how archaeology looks at the past. So in Unit 5, you're going to be taking a look at more details on the urban state. So again, remember, population density, not just the number, but how closely packed they are. And that's why intensive agriculture becomes such a big deal as well, right? Because when you don't have any space, just like we don't in our urban world, then you can't produce your own food for a day-to-day basis or many other raw materials. So intensive agriculture will pop up as a major issue in your three highlighted cultures for this particular unit. So also we're going to be taking a look in more detail at the other more specific functions of an urban state or a state level of political organization. In all of the look around the world, we'll start to see basically the beginnings of exactly your life. Centralized authorities or bureaucracies who control virtually everything on the day-to-day basis. And in order to do that, they may use a combination of spiritual, ritual, or motivational purposes. They may use authority, taxation. They may use gifting, receiving, and services like protection, or they may use fear, force, and punishment. All three of these are going to be really evident as we take a look at the ancient world, just like they are in our everyday news today. Again, you have already taken a look at two areas where this type of lifestyle was functioning, the Maya in the rainforest and the Moche on a coastal desert plain. And now we'll take a look at how this manifests in several different types of environments. But the biggest difference with these is that the cultures we're moving on to are much, much older. We're going to start out at several thousand years BC and only get right up until just around 81. So this is a much, much older part of the world to take a look at, and there'll be cultures that you already have seen some visuals or have learned some of the details about, at least the aesthetics, architecture, art, and so forth of the zones that we're going to focus on. Okay, so what you're going to be taking a look at in specific is looking at the growth of centralization. So how the governments work and how they're able to pull resources in, how they're able to use the population as their own employees and workers, and how they're able to establish a regional identity that is separate than other areas so that we know who's us versus them. Sound familiar? Exactly. Information. We also started taking a look at information. You have already investigated the issue of epigraphy. Remember, that is being able to decipher ancient writing systems, whether that fully writes out the way that a language sounds, like Maya hieroglyphs that you just finished up taking a little look at, or whether it is a little bit more suggestive of ideas and other terminology. There's lots of ways for writing to function. So you're going to take a look at the origins of writing in the old world in this unit. We also took a look at iconography, so the way that symbols, color, repeated designs, motifs. It can be in architecture, it can be in murals, it can be in paper, tattoos, all that sort of thing. The way that this establishes information that can be passed on to other people or for us to use as we pass through the world and interact with strangers as well. Your new details for the origins of writing and the way that information is used will include taking a look at the very earliest zone of this and how that's originally related in this particular part of the world to trade and transportation of goods. And then also please be sure that you are picking up or in your notes taking a look at what we term these various writing systems. You already know that they're called hieroglyphs in Egypt, but there are different terms for them in different places, and that will be part of as you read. The growth of metallurgy also is better taken a look at for the old world and particularly for these really ancient zones. In the Americas, we did see that metals, copper, silver, sometimes gold, were used as ornaments or sometimes as very simple materials for things like fish hooks and that sort of thing. But generally, these are raw materials, very, very soft metals, and are more ornamental than functional. But in the old world, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, this becomes a much more complicated bit of technology. So you'll also have some lesson there on your basic terminology, which metals are the earliest used, how they process these into harder conglomerations or aggregations so that they can use them for work, for war, for other kinds of purposes. That lead us to where we are today in the world with metals. So our three focus cultural zones for this unit are going to be Mesopotamia, which means the land between the rivers, like hippopotamus. The potamus part is the river part. And in this case, we are looking at the origins of urban society in the what's called Western Asia or the ancient Near East. The origins of this are far to the south, and so this area is called Sumer. Sometimes you'll hear it pronounced Sumer or Sumer. We're speaking English. It's all good, just as long as you can recognize it. In this particular zone, you're going to take a look at the fact that for the growth of cities, it's not in the Fertile Crescent where agriculture gets its start. It's in an area there where without agriculture and centralized authority, they wouldn't be able to grow those crops. So Mesopotamia and Sumer, there's a couple of case studies that go with that one. Moving on, there's a little section on the origins of writing, and you'll see that, you'll notice it in your reading assignment. Moving on, you're going to take a look at the beginnings of urban Egypt. Now, Egypt, again, highly reliant on rivers. In this case, there's just one big one, which is why it's frequently called the land of the Nile. The Nile is a fascinating particular area, geographically and naturally, because it is the only major river on the planet that flows from south to north. So you do know that it empties out into the Mediterranean today, and it did in the past. And along this particular zone, we've always had people living along this river, but at the beginnings of urbanism, they begin to control and manage flowing water further into the desert. Alongside that Nile Valley, it is among the driest desert areas on the planet, so it did take a tremendous amount of organization, technical know-how, and getting workers to work together and play fair in order to make this into a very productive zone. So we're going to be taking a look at the origins of the Egyptian state and urban areas, so that so-called Dynasty Zero and the very, very beginning of it, and really, really great stuff as well. The last of the cultures in the old world that we're going to take a specific look at would be China. We looked at China a little bit earlier in the course. Now we're going to come back and take a look at two time frames for China. The beginnings of urban Chinese culture, and your case studies will be reflecting on Shang culture. You'll have some video to view that highlights Shang culture as well, and the way that this particular area of the world invents its own type of writing, manifests that in terms of ritual and authority, and how they're able to maintain a centralized type of government. Later on, a bit later, after a period of the growth of urbanism and a little bit of other types of conflict, we have the beginnings of empire. And actually, the Qin Empire is going to be, which is China's first emperor, Emperor Qin, spelled Qin in English, is the world's oldest known empire that we have investigated in any particular detail archaeologically. So in this one, you'll be taking a look at how that comes together and how that particular urban state is able to control the beginnings of what is modern China for a couple thousand years. This is also the period of the time for probably the world's most elaborate, largest, and richest funerary monument ever, and called Mount Lee. And also as a part of that, just as a tiny part of the entire burial theme park, essentially for China's first emperor, is where the so-called terracotta army is there. The investigation and excavation of that area is going to go on for many, many, many decades. It's a major tourist and sort of pilgrimage zone for China today, and the amount of technical information that comes out of the investigations anthropologically, archaeologically, geologically, and so on and so forth is every year since the initial discovery adds more and more and more to what we know about these sorts of issues. So there you go. That's what we'll be moving towards. Now, to just wrap up this little intro part, the course has a preset final date, and the final day, the day that it was originally set in your syllabus, is the last day the final exam will be open. It's not going to be open for an entire week, probably just about 48 hours. It was already in your schedule from before, and since we started, thinking we were going to be meeting face-to-face all the time, that's how we will do it. But at any rate, final exams, no matter the organization of the semester, are legally the last time that I can accept any type of work. So you'll be doing the same sorts of activities for this unit as we did previously, and there will be in this last unit another course visual activity. Like Unit 4, it will be worth 15 points, but this will be a different type of activity, which I haven't fully created yet because I always try to do something new each time I meet up with students. All right, so there you go. Set it all up. We don't have too much time left. It's the week of the second week of May coming up pretty soon, so we're almost done, and it's been wonderful working with you. Okay,